I think the private sector is extremely important because we know that the bulk of the mitigations actions actually come from businesses. So their role is really important in driving the change, in developing new technologies. Of course, with the support of governments and with the government and parliaments setting the legal standards and the sort of direction, and also, obviously, with the support of a global framework. I must say that climate change is now on the agenda of all governments and also of all CEOs of not just the big corporations, but also small and medium-sized companies. The face has been there the whole time, but I think there's a growing awareness of the importance of businesses. So, for instance, we saw during the last climate meeting, both what we call the pre-COP, the pre-meeting, and also in the COP as such, the climate meeting as such, that industries were there. I think there's a growing awareness. I think most people out in the countryside, living by the sea, for instance, have already seen and realized the effects of climate change. But they are, I think, increasingly active also in influencing the governments. And also governments as such have realized the effects, both the causes and the effects of climate change. So I think there's a clear raising of awareness. First of all, we have a very close relationship with nature. It's sort of in our soul to care about the environment. I think that's one aspect of it. And then when we started feeling the effects of industrialization, we felt that things were happening. And then we had public awareness campaigns public campaigns to raise awareness. Like when I grew up, we had this campaign called Keep Sweden Clean. And then there was another decisive moment in the 70s when we had the energy crisis and the oil prices were going up. And we were heavily dependent on fossil fuels at the time. But that's when we really started transforming our society with all sorts of measures. And one very important measure was the tax on carbon, the CO2 tax that we started implementing already in the early 90s. In 1991, we were among the first countries to have such a tax. Of course, there were protests from in the beginning. No one likes paying taxes, but today there are very few people who would question and argue that we should get rid of the carbon tax. It's a difficult challenge. I think, as you said, growth, there's strong growth, push for development, push for access to food, access to energy, and at the same time a growing realization that India also has to go for more low carbon solutions, which is already happening. But of course, it's also a question of price, and then we talk about fossil fuel. Traditionally, countries like India have used subsidies to support the poorer segments of the population, and now there is a growing awareness that these subsidies have to be phased out. So it's a difficult balance, but I think one should try and see the opportunities also, and also try to think what's best for India in the long term, and avoid some of the mistakes that we made in the West, in the industrialized country, because we didn't have access to the right kind of technology and we didn't understand the effects. I mean, you can see some of the effects of pollution, but CO2 emissions, you don't feel them until it's too late, until you feel the effect. I think Sweden has an important role to play. As an example, to share our experiences, be it on the regulatory level, legislative level, also as a constructive party to the climate change negotiation, constructive actor in other multilateral negotiations, and also when we can share our technology solutions in various ways. I mean, commercially, but also through other forms of cooperation. So I think we can, and also I think it's important to say that we also have a lot of things to learn from Indian experiences. You can share with us, be it traditional food, traditional medicine, other traditional values that we would really gain from learning more about, because the quality of life is not just about having several cars and having a big house and buy a lot of new things. It's also about how we take care of our health, how we take care of our what we eat, and all kinds of other types of knowledge. I think we have a lot to learn from India, and also modern India. You have an entrepreneurship spirit, which is something that we can learn from.